podcast about bourbon and the ones who drink it. This is Bourbon Matters.
This is dessert.
And you started recording, right?
You guys insulting my
Perfect.
My whiskey all this time.
Yeah, he doesn't like your French oak.
Took a sip and I said, this tastes like dessert.
You're so.
I was saying a lot of French oaked bourbons to me just taste like French oak. This one is like very subtle. It still tastes like bourbon.
I was
which
having
is, like,
that
not-
conversation with somebody last night
Thank you for noticing.
because they were like, yeah, like Maker's 46 ruined French oak for me. I don't like any French oaks now.
Yeah.
And he was trying our Jaguar tequila that's aged in French oak. And he was like, I don't get that here. Get all the buttery sweetness because it was a Chardonnay French oak barrel. And I was like, yeah, French oak is a very offensive type of oak if you don't know what you're doing when you're finishing and aging in it.
Yeah, it certainly turns very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
American oak, I feel like you could leave it in there forever, and after a while, it's going to taste like char. But French oak can get astringent very quickly, and so when you know you're nearing the end of your aging in French oak, you have to taste it daily. And you can also see it kind of, coming, right? And so there's a period of time where I can, tell my folks, like, this is going to be out of this within the next 2 days. These are going to stay for another couple of weeks. This is...
So you're overseeing all the secondary aging?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, if I'm going to put my name on anything, I want to make sure that it's, being honest and truthful.
It's what you want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's, a lot of people involved along the way. But a lot of people that are involved along the way could also be, just my friends. I can blend to what I like, and that's what I go with, but it's also important to, get others to try it too. It's important to get multiple palates trying things to see what they think. And, I certainly feel like this, especially in my life as an investment banker, if 60% of people like you and only 40% of people dislike you, you're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I approach the world of whiskey as well, right?
Could you imagine if politicians live by that rule? If they can get 60% of people to like it.
Yeah. Well,
It's
that
all
was
they're-
the
it's all
hard
they're
lesson I
hoping for,
learned
right?
in the blend off. The
Yeah.
first year, so
Yep.
2 years now we've done a blending challenge where we've each made a blend and had the Gold Eagle room sample them and vote on their favorite.
Yeah.
So the
Blind.
first year I made 2 different blends.
He spends way too much time on this shit.
I spent a whole month making my blend.
No, it was more than that.
Yeah, you were talking shit.
It was like a month before. You're like, I'm done, and I got the best blend ever. And
No, you're right.
we did ours like the
'Cause
night
I let
before,
both
and
of them sit in
his
the
was the
bottle and
worst.
mingle. But I made 2 blends. The first one, the one that I ended up showing,
Yeah.
was what I thought my perfect flavor profile would be. Turns out that is not what people want in a,
No, see,
in a
what
bourbon.
you probably fell a victim of is overthinking. Right? This transcends just the whiskey world, but overthinking. I love this story. So, Jen and I, you guys met Jen. We were at a local place here, and we went to a wine blending. There's like 60 people there, and Jen, she likes her wine, right? And she's, putting together wine. You had, 4 different, varietals to choose from, etc. And Jen, being that she likes to cook, etc., also understands that you have to be mindful. It doesn't have to be French cooking all the time. It can be Spanish or Italian, which is maybe a little more simple, more approachable, etc. And so she did this blend, and she was done. She's one of the first ones done. She brings her glass up and, puts it, by the judges, etc. I'm sitting there playing around, what am I going to do? And I put together something, and I was like, no, I'm not a wine blender, clearly. And but let's see, put this up there. All these other people, 58 others or so, bring theirs up, and everyone's like, sipping through, et cetera, et cetera. An hour after, they're like, we have a clear, and when I say clear, by leaps and bounds winner, and this wine was incredible, and blah blah blah, and it was number blah 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 blah. Sure as shit, Jen stands up. It was Jen,
Wow.
right? Because it was a simple,
Yeah.
you know, easily approachable wine that she blended together, and she only used 3 of the 4, and she was just using accents, right? She had a base of
Yep.
something that was the majority of it, and then she was using accents. You had people that was like 25% of this, 13% of this, 12% of this, et cetera, and it's the overthinkers, and so it's kind of the same way with this. And so if you're going to finish in something, that's a little different. But if I'm curating barrels, and first off, the curation of barrels is extremely important. I mean, I could talk about that forever. Go to MGP, go to Bardstown, go to Green River, wherever you want, and say, give me 12 barrels of 4-year made in this month. Those 12 barrels, if you have an advanced palate, they're going to taste different, right? And what I love about the whiskey world is the human aspect of it. If the master distiller is having a bad day, or somebody has to rush and get to something their wife told them to get to, etc., you can have variation in batches. I kind of love that about the whiskey world. It adds to the romance a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that recently with the automation, of a lot of distilling now, how they kind of took the love and the care, out of things a little bit.
What's your take on that?
My take is I am caught in a situation where I'd like to grow my business so that a lot of people have the beautiful and the damn in their hands. But I'd also like to have controlled growth, because what I don't want to get to is the point where I have to say, fuck, back up the truck. I have to take all those barrels.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because I have this demand in whatever state that I have to get to.
Yeah, just
And
start putting out stuff just to meet the market.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
that would drive me insane.
So even I'm gonna
Well, we should do
I'm gonna
intros.
double down. Well, I was gonna say we can just keep talking and this will be a great episode, and then we'll, at the end be like, yeah, by the way.
I think
But we can do intros
I
and
think we already started the episode.
Yeah.
we did.
Yeah,
no,
we
we're
can always do
recording.
Intros.
As
Let's
long as
do
you're sure
intros.
we're
We've been recording, so
Yeah,
we're
Yeah.
we're
let's do
good.
intros.
Well, welcome to Bourbon Matters. I'm Jake.
Dan.
And I'm Gold Eagle Jake.
There's probably not going to be a cold open on this episode. But that's okay.
The whole thing is a cold open.
Yeah.
But we've got a very special guest who was gracious enough to host us at his house.
Yeah.
Provide some phenomenal dinner, cigars, and whiskey. Kevin here from Beautiful and Damned, not from the founder of Beautiful and Damned.
Yeah, lucky me some days, other days not so lucky. Glad to be here. Glad to be talking with you guys, and already had some good conversation so far. And so let's start recording the remaining portion of it, shall we?
So we were just talking about, automation in the industry and trying to deal with growing, a fairly new brand, and not wanting to just have to pump out product in order to meet demand. You used controlled growth,
Yeah.
to describe that.
Yeah.
So do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Well, let me first start out by saying that this business is not an easy business. This business is a money in, money out business if you want to grow it. And it'll be that way for years, right? And that's important for people to understand and know. I think there's a lot of folks that'll get the idea in the back of their mind. I want to start a whiskey business or a vodka business or a tequila business or a you name it, canned cocktail business. Great, absolutely. I was told over 10 years ago now, about 12 years ago, Kevin, you should get into the whiskey business. And I didn't do it. I was an investment banker. It's a great life, have a lot of fun doing it, work with some awesome people, etc. And just kind of put it on the back burner. And there was the the boom that occurred in the whiskey world, right? So bourbon's rise, etc. And happened, of course, with COVID, but even before that. And so what was happening is all these brands are, building their brands, and they think that volume is going to continue to grow at, volume of sales, velocity of sales, going to continue to grow at 100% a year for so many years, et cetera. And so they go and they get bank loans, or they go and they get, private equity behind their names, and they buy millions of dollars of barrels, and they spend a ton of their money, and they leverage themselves like crazy.
8-foot
And-
diameter column stills.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna pump out 1 million, barrels a year. Those guys are in a world of hurt right now. What I love about what I'm doing now is on 100% of the thing, debt free, and all of the barrel contracts that I had were forward reservation contracts. Had a good relationship. I was able to do that and not purchase, and that is such a blessing, because there are so many people locked into contracts buying 4-year barrels at $4,000 a barrel when you can get those for half that or less, depending on who you talk to. And so for me, controlled growth was extremely important. I was also as an investment banker, you understand the way the markets work, et cetera. And I could see that there was going to be a bit of a boom bust, whatever it may be. And when I say bust, I have to be careful with that. I think there's definitely still consumption, right? But if we go into, and I haven't been into your houses, but I bet you go into your houses and you probably have years worth of whiskey sitting on the shelves, right? As
Years or lifetimes?
More than
Yeah, he's got lifetime. I'm down to probably about 1.5 years or 2 years is what I keep stocked now.
Okay, but what's your consumption daily? How many ounces a
On an average day, 1.5 ounces. 4 a night.
day? Whoa,
Been trying to drink it down.
this guy might be Pope in the future.
That's probably not going to be good for the
Well,
calendar.
he's been on a mission to
He's
fit
moving,
his
so-
collection,
yeah.
Less bottles to move.
The last couple of years since I moved down there, I didn't know I was going to move right away, but I've been trying to get the collection lower where I need to get rid of it. I can get rid of it.
That's a good point. Yeah, moving everything to Utah would not be so fun.
I have. I don't know if I should make the number public because some people might get mad at me.
Well, I think now you have to.
Your wife
I
doesn't
don't
listen.
know. I don't
Yeah,
even
your
know,
wife probably
to be
doesn't
honest.
listen.
I stopped counting at 200.
You're
but
over
it's
400.
probably over 400. I'd say
I would say way more than that.
could be more than that. But
So you're at 500 bottles. Have you done the math on that? 25
uh,
ounces in each bottle.
definitely impossible to drink in my lifetime,
I had
unless I really gave it. the
while
old
you're doing
college
while you're
try.
doing the math on that, I have a customer who came up to me and was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna slow down a little bit on my buying." I did the
said that.
math. No, it was someone else. Someone
I did
else.
say that too.
Yeah, he did, but he didn't follow through.
No.
Which is good. Continue. Yeah, customer goes, yeah, I did the math. If I continue to drink at the rate that I'm drinking, I will be 79 years old when I finish all my whiskey. And that's, he's 35, 34.
That's without
That's so good.
That's
buying
without,
any bottles.
yeah, without buying anything else. Like if I stopped buying, I would be 79 years old when I finished all my whiskey that I have.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
How many ounces do you drink a day?
On average, probably like
What
less
day of the
than
week
a
is
quarter
it?
of an ounce.
Oh my god.
I drink like maybe 1.5 ounces on the podcast each week.
All right, so let's just say that's.
I mean, he
You don't
donates
even wanna
bottles
do-
to our bar for charity
You don't want
every
to do
month.
that math, but let's say just so let's say you drink an ounce a day on
Yeah.
average. So 12,500 ounces divided by 365. Wow, my friend, you have 34 years worth of whiskey sitting on your shelf.
Yeah.
Now, here's the fun thing, though, is it's not going to stop you from buying another bottle. Because, we used to collect when we were young, baseball cards, Hot Wheels, whatever the hell we wanted to, right?
Yeah.
Now, our collecting is booze because it's fun, right?
Yeah.
And you can also get some things like, the Beautiful and the Damned, for example. Obviously, we pay very close attention to the, whiskey label art. That's, fun to display. So, but I have, you guys saw the bar up here on the main level, of the bar downstairs too, and I have, decent amount of whiskey. I have it, hidden in cabinets and stuff like that. But if I kept all of the whiskey that I purchased, you'd see it all over the place. And what I do, because I own a whiskey brand, have to do research and development, quote unquote. But truth is, it truly is research and development. Buy a bunch of whiskey. I have to. I want to see what the competition is doing. A lot of it, I'm like, that's funny, and then others, I'm like, ooh, God, that's really good. What are they doing there?
Yep.
But my friends love me because what I will do is I will go to their houses with boxes of like $50 to $100 bottles of whiskey, sometimes more, depending how good of a friend
I
you
say
are.
it depends on the friend.
Walk in, put it down, and be like, hey, I brought you something. And they're like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. Which is nice.
That's what I ended up having to do.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I had the problem shortly
You have
after.
many problems.
Well, this particular issue is that when I got to like
Admitting it.
Yeah. He knows.
when I got to like 200 bottles, I was like, I'm hoarding these, so I forced myself to just open bottles, whether or not I was gonna like drink them immediately or not.
Uh-huh.
So I had a bunch of open bottles that
By the way, I
needed
love that
to
sound.
do
That's
something.
really-
Yeah.
Look at that. I'm sorry.
ASMR version part of the podcast.
So you started opening bottles.
Yeah, and as the collection grew, a lot of those, I thought were good whiskeys, and they were actually not. And I was like, oh,
That's
like I don't know why I opened 6 different High West SKUs, 3 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, so, well, luckily my buddy plays like in a pool league, and they bottle share after every pool thing. So I just gave him boxes of
that's awesome.
bottles. I was like, just take these and
Some of the High West
go
stuff
have
is
fun.
great. I mean, I will say though, I am shocked sometimes when I look at. We're obviously very transparent. I think is the buzzword. I let everybody, especially on the internet, the ages of the products and the barrels that we're putting in each of our blends, etc. Not everyone is that way, but I am sometimes shocked when I look at the back label of some and say a minimum of 2 years old, and they're asking like $55 for that bottle. And I'm like, holy shit, they're making a ton of money on that.
Yeah.
And there's two sides of the market. There's the discerning drinker that wants to know everything that's going on and wants something that's really good and wants the story behind it. What have we been saying since we were young, right? Tell me a story, right? Everyone wants to know a story, and they want the story behind it. And then there's the other side where it's just, I have $50 to spend. What looks cool? All right, this, boom,
Yep.
take that. And still trying to figure that one out in my world. That's for sure.
Well, and what's the thing that everybody's talking about right now? Let me go grab that.
Yeah, there is that. I like to say there's ADHD in the market, and it's really good and then really bad, right? Because people walk down the aisles, see the beautiful and the damned, say, "Oh, this looks cool." One of the coolest comments I ever got, by the way, was, "Holy shit! Somehow this tastes better than it looks." That was one of the coolest comments I ever got. And so they'll pick it up and they'll taste it like, "Oh, that's great, check." Now what? And it's three men here happily married, one not. We'll see what happens in Utah. You never know. Right?
One happily not married.
But we don't cheat on our wives, but we sure cheat on our whiskey. That is for sure. We will just go through whatever. I mean, you have 500 concubines waiting for you at your house.
And there's always the handful of go-tos. But we've talked about this on previous episodes. That I'm done trying to get BTAC and trying to get whatever the LE from whoever is. Besides a handful, and everybody knows which distilleries I like.
You said distilleries.
Yeah, what are the
It's
distilleries?
distillery.
Heaven Hill is number one.
Okay. Got it.
But
There's no distilleries. It's singular.
Got it.
it's only Heaven Hill. But to me, it's much more interesting to go for barrel picks now and smaller brands, craft brands, independent bottlers, things like that are being more selective with what they're releasing. You know.
Yeah, sun's down, thank God. Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of the niche that I like to plan. Do I have grand plans for the beautiful and the damned? Sure. Do I want to build something, big? Sure. Do I want to be in all 50 states? I don't know, yet. But I want to get to a case volume that, really makes sense, gets people excited about things, allows me to do the things that I really want to do, throw really awesome events and, give stuff away and, do all that stuff. And, it takes time. It gets back to that, controlled growth. Whereas the brands that have been around for a long time are, out there, have the marketing dollars, can spend, et cetera, and also don't need as large margins, because the velocity of sales is crazy.
Yeah.
Not to mention all the smaller schnapps brands and all the other things that they make a lot of high margin on. So
Yeah. Fireballs.
we didn't have to go there, but somebody went there. 99s.
Yeah, that's the joke, right? I could take this path, and it's like a slow growth, etc. Or you could do the fireball
Fireball or peanut butter whiskey.
peanut butter, screwball at 70%, and it's, I'll do a large portion light whiskey mixed with some other crap and all sorts of artificial flavors that cause cancer, I'm sure, and that's where all the money is to be made.
Yeah.
And so it's odd. And what I will say is, part of my, I've projects that I'm working on. One of which is a bottled and bond, both on the bourbon side and rye side. So bottled and bond will end up at 5 years or 6 years on it. So it'll be above, of course, the minimum standard of 4. And those are going to retail most likely at $49.99. And I'm going to do that because, one, I can, right, given where the pricing of barrels is now. And two, what pains me is when I have one of my guys go out and do a tasting, or I myself will be out, and you get the guy that really wants the good stuff but can't necessarily afford it because they have, kids at home and they have, so many responsibilities, etc. And they're like, I have $50 to spend. And like Last Lion, which we should drink here soon. 98 out of 100 points San Francisco World Spirits Competition was in Forbes magazine for finalists for best small batch bourbon of the year, and it's $79.99. And so I have actually at times at little pop-up tasting events, etc., thrown a guy a $20 bill just so he can get that. And because they're just stuck and they're sitting there, you can tell the pain on their faces, like, damn. It's so good. It's
you don't want to force people to choose between that bottle of whiskey or their kid's birthday present, or whatever, right? Like,
and that $50 price point is a point that I think most whiskey or a lot of whiskeys should be at, for right around there, because if you're getting into whiskey, you're buying $25, $30 bottles of whiskey. You want something nice and something that stands out. A $50 bottle is something that you can push up to
Treat yourself
$15
a
from the
little bit,
35,
yeah.
and you're still getting something really, really good. That's something outside of a small batch Craig and
Right.
stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's too many people that are just coming to market with young whiskey at 70, 80, 90
oh
bucks.
my God, drives me crazy.
Put it in a really fancy bottle so you can charge more.
Drives me crazy, and I don't think that's a winning. It's not a viable solution long term. Short term, yeah, you can fool the hell out of people, I'm sure.
Well, during the boom, there was a argument to be made that you could get away with that. Right?
During the boom, it was whatever was out there and whatever was new,
There
people
no
were
rules,
buying.
yeah.
It didn't matter. Price point, age, doesn't matter.
Now
It's
we're
new.
in the,
It's shiny.
the plateau,
Yeah,
or the
We're in the real phase.
yeah.
we're
The
back to
real
reality.
phase. We're in reality right now.
Yeah, it's just a lot of the practices I think that we saw in the past 5 or 6 years are not going to be sustainable anymore, and it's going to be very rapid. I think those things change.
Yeah. I mean, I want to be careful about bringing up, competition, et cetera, but, brands like Blue Run,
That's one we've talked about a lot with
So I'm safe space here.
They don't-
$99.
they don't pay us
With the
anything.
distillery announcement. They talked about releasing they're building that brand new facility
Oh God.
for 300-some million,
Oh,
and there's
my
been
God.
nothing written since that in the last 2 years.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you have a lot of those that have invested in that. Now, of course, they got purchased, et cetera, because they needed some money, and it was the Nike of the whiskey business,
Yep.
and they probably got a great payout on it. I'm
Those
sure
were
they're
all, like,
hurting. I'm sure
tech
they're hurting
guys
now.
too that started it or something.
Yeah, it was like it was sexy
Yeah.
for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a brand, but let me finish on Blue Run. 4-year Kentucky whiskey at $99. That is a god awful ripoff. It's terrible. Now, here's the dynamic that is occurring with some of these companies that people don't really know about, and that is they have bought and or entered into forward contracts to buy barrels at inflated prices, and they're contractually obligated to buy these barrels, and I'm talking thousands upon thousands. And so when you do the math on that, I love numbers. I'm a big math numbers guy. I mean, in order for them to get a margin that is sustainable from marketing perspective, et cetera, at the levels that they're paying, I'm not kidding. They have to literally charge like $75 a bottle for that 4-year whiskey. And that's a problem, right? That is a big problem because assholes like me out there can buy barrels for less than half of what they're paying for their 4-year, and I'm buying like 5 and 6 year, for less than half of what they're paying. So that's wild. Now, doesn't matter. We live in America. People like to chase the shiny object. Oh, that looks cool. Oh, I heard about this. This is,
It's got a gold butterfly.
yeah,
on it.
this is beautiful. I need, blah, blah, blah.
Some of them are rainbow butterflies.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Shiny metal butterflies.
The rye is actually kind of cool. It's like tarnished copper.
All right, no. Just kidding.
Is that amongst your 500 bottles at home?
It is, yeah.
Uh-oh.
He
You
got a
fell victim.
got a handwritten note when he ordered direct from him one time.
I did, yeah.
That's why he bought
Well,
more.
that's very nice.
I have maybe 4 bottles from them, and that one rye is the only one I've actually really enjoyed.
Well, and I'm sure you've got some of this too, Kevin, because we were getting into Whiskey Acres. Is when you're talking about those people that bought those
So good.
barrels at contract.
That is so good, by the way.
It is really good.
That's
Yeah.
that single barrel.
That's really good.
The
Oh.
cast strength one, yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
The how many times do you get an email now from random person from small distillery trying to shop around 2,000 barrels?
Oh, God.
It's all
Oh.
the time now. It's,
Oh, all the time.
because they did exactly what you did. Now they're stuck with these
And
barrels and they got to try to
so,
unload them.
It's somewhat sad. Some of the stories I know, I'm like, oh man, that's terrible. And then the other stories I know, it's investors have invested in barrels because they wanted to see them appreciate because it was a phenomenal investment for many years. I mean, even whiskey was just in bottles was a phenomenal investment for some. It was one of the best performing assets out there. Right, so everyone is getting to know this. They want to throw their money behind it. And if you're buying barrels and you buy $100,000 worth of barrels, and you're worth, and you have $1 million or more in your retirement account, well, whatever. It's 10%. You wanted to give it a shot, et cetera. It's not going to work out. You probably get 50% of that money back. But it's whatever. These are like big businesses that were giving away equity in order to buy this. And that is what is unfortunate. I don't want to have to answer to anyone with my brand. I want to do what I want to do.
Yep.
And I'm glad I'm in that position.
Yeah. Well, what's wild is like maybe 2 years ago, there were a few different, like literal like whiskey investment, like portfolio
Cash
managers or whatever,
whatever, yeah.
that like popped up. I think 2 of them went bankrupt this year,
Mm-hmm.
or at least,
Yeah.
are gonna liquidate everything, and so it's not panning out the way that I think some
Yeah.
people thought.
Not to name names, but a very prominent bank in the whiskey space, whiskey barrels, lines of credit, etc. They used to be able to lend out on purchasing of whiskey barrels 85 cents on the dollar So, if you were buying $1 million worth of barrels, they would lend you $850,000 on those barrels. You don't have to pony up $150,000. What's happened now, right? And this is when new fill was, I mean, back in the day, you could buy new fill for like $600 a barrel, $650 a barrel. It was creeping up to over $1,000 a barrel, and you would literally have to wait in line in order to get it. Now, new fill is back to where it kind of was, right? It's not in the 600s yet because the price of barrels is so expensive now.
Yeah.
A barrel itself, cut me off if I start to nerd out too much here.
Nerd out.
But a barrel itself will be like $285. So you have $285 and you have all of this cost behind the distillery itself, to where I would say book value of a barrel is around $500, and these distilleries have to make money on that, so they want to sell them for $750, $850, etc. They used to get over $1,000, right? And you literally have to stand in line. Now, not so much. And so think about it as, back in that value proposition of the bank, right? So you're spending $1,000 on those barrels, you're lending $850. Well, unfortunately, right now you can buy new fill barrels for like $750. They're underwater on all those, so there's margin calls with all of these investors, and all of these, it's investors, it's distilleries, etc. They have to pony up more money to make sure they don't default. And I will say, this bank has not had a default yet. Everyone has made their margin call, which is crazy. But this new market dynamic is occurring to where they've completely shut off lending on barrels because they want to see what the hell is going to happen. And in addition, if they do turn it back on, maybe they'll be at 60 cents on the dollar. For Kentucky and MGP. Outside of that, Texas or California or New York or whatever, if you want to buy those new fill, 45 cents on the dollar. Because there's not the secondary market for it. There's a secondary market for Kentucky, for the most part. There's a secondary market for MGP and some Tennessee.
Oh, yeah, that's going wayside though.
Yeah.
Well, Tennessee seems to be mostly a blenders kind of sourcing.
There's some big brands on Tennessee, buddy. Some big brands that are just all Tennessee. And, the one thing I will say I learned from this business is that you're not so much in the whiskey business. You're in the fucking marketing business.
Yeah.
You have to market. Why are people going to drink yours instead of somebody else's? You're in the marketing business.
And when did I get my MBA? Last year? 2 years ago?
I've been giving you shit about it for at least a year.
But for my marketing class, we did.
You interviewed me.
I did interview you.
Yeah, I remember that.
We did Jack Daniels for our marketing project.
That's fun.
So I did, research into Brown-Forman and, stuff like that. And
Brown-Forman causing a stir in the market, by the way, with distributors. We should talk about that.
Yeah.
But keep going through it.
it was funny because we did a class survey asking a bunch of questions like what do you drink and stuff like that, and like what's your opinion of Jack Daniels. It's predictable what people think of Jack Daniels. It's the whiskey I had in college that made me hate whiskey and things like that. But the big thing that was hot like 2 years ago was RTDs, ready to drink cocktails and things. So my proposal was a canned Jack and Coke, and sure as shit that came out like that year.
You missed your calling.
Yeah, I missed it.
Smart idea. Now, Jack Daniels actually has a place in my heart as well, and that it actually is one of the reasons why I got into the whiskey business. So let me kind of rewind.
Yeah.
So my dad was a Jack Daniels drinker. Loved the stuff. We talked about earlier. I think it's either 75th or 100th anniversary. I don't drink Jack Daniels stuff. I apologize, Brown-Forman. I just don't. Plenty of my own, including this 18 and a half here that we should try. My dad drank it all the time when I was little. I'm talking like literally like 2, 3, 4 years old. My dad, when I'd have a sore throat, be like, "Here you go, son.
Yep.
Have a little shot of Jack Daniels," and I would have, a little shot of Jack Daniels. I mean, if I had to guess the ounces, it was probably a half an ounce. But when you're like 3, 4, 5 years old, you weigh nothing, right?
Yeah.
I'd be like, "Wow, this is great." Sore throat went away, immediately or whatever. And we all understand like the medicinal roots of whiskey. I mean, it's kind of brilliant, and actually somewhat works. I mean, I'll actually say when I'm starting to get like a sinus infection, I will come out here and or wherever and smoke a cigar, and I'm not kidding, it kind of works. It like nullifies my sinus problem. But Jack Daniels, kind of was the first, whiskey drink that I would have, and drank whiskey. Had whiskey my whole life. Love whiskey, and the reason why I got into the business is not to get a little too dark here, but my father passed away of COVID in 2022. Really kicked his ass, and it was one of those moments where I was like, I'm getting older, and Jen's been on me to start a whiskey business for literally a decade. Like, I think I'm going to do it. And so my dad passed in
If your wife
February.
is pushing.
I was going
it.
to say,
Yeah,
you're one of the few that's the other way around.
Right?
Yeah, and for her too, it was like, Kevin, throw money and, hire some good people and, get going at it. And, so, he passes in February 2022, and I filed the paperwork for The Beautiful and the Damned in March of 2022, and said, life is short. I want to do this, and I want to do it the right way. I want to, take time. And so Jack Daniels kind of has a place for me, despite its banana undertones.
So I have to ask, because when's the last time you had Jack Daniels? And are you referring to the standard label, or are you referring to some single barrels? And
Here, the last time I had Jack Daniels, I was in Springfield, Illinois, and I was there for the release of my very first single barrel. It was a single barrel one of Old Orleans at Riverton Party Store. Jeb is the guy there. He is fucking awesome. The guy's you love Jeb. Such a good guy. He gets it, just like you guys. You get it, And I was going to have this event there, and prior to, I went to this restaurant with one of the guys that reps the brand, and we're sitting in this barbecue joint, and the guy comes up to me and says, "Hey, you're the owner of The Beautiful and the Damned, right?" Like, yeah. He's like, that's awesome. I got some bottles back here, and let me go pull some bottles. And he brought some bottles out of his other stuff that he had, and he had it was a Jack Daniels. Is it like a Sinatra?
Yeah.
Right? What is that? What is it called? The
Sinatra.
Yeah, Sinatra.
Select or something.
Yeah, Sinatra. And he's like, yeah. And so I was like, Frank Sinatra. I love Frank. This will be great. This is the start of my whiskey world. I haven't had Jack in forever. Let me have some. And he poured me some Sinatra. And this is about, I don't know, 6 months ago or something like that.
let me guess, you were unimpressed.
And I mean, how could I not? Of course, he's giving me, he brings everything out, and I choose that, and I say thank you, of course, because I am very grateful. Whiskey is about place, it's about sharing it with people, etc. And I was very glad that he had done that. I hadn't in a long time, but holy shit, it was like boom, yep, it tastes the same as it did.
Yep.
40 years ago, and that was the last time I had it. But I'll
So the 7 label and Sinatra.
yeah.
And
You gotta-
a gentleman, like all three of those are nothing.
Yeah,
the bonded,
it's-
the bondeds are were
The
I was
band,
always
the
same way.
bondeds.
The first time I had Jack bonded, because I never liked Jack.
Yeah.
Jack bonded, I opened my eyes back up a little bit too.
And then,
Would
and
they-
then when you get a good single barrel
Yeah, the single
of
barrel
Jack,
great.
that's where it will flip your
That's
mind.
That's probably pretty darn interesting
Yeah.
because it's all.
I was the same way with
Yeah.
Jack Daniels.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the single barrel thing on that side could be very interesting because whiskey is whiskey to a point, right? That we're talking Tennessee whiskey. I'm not in love with Tennessee whiskey. It doesn't have enough body to it in my mind. But yeah, I bet you could find some amazing single barrels.
I call it the stag killer.
Yeah.
When you find a good single barrel of Jack Daniels, they're 135 proof, and it's like cherry and vanilla, oak, and a little bit of that banana.
Yeah.
And I've had it take down George T. Stagg in a blind.
Yeah. Oh, I love doing blinds.
Mhm.
Oh my God, I love doing blinds. It's so much fun.
Yeah. I mean, that's what a lot of the non-branded master classes are
Mhm.
blinds, heads up battles, between two different
Yeah.
whiskeys, and it's a blast to do.
Oh, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's hilarious to see
Especially
where
when
people.
you see people
split.
sneak in stuff that's has no business,
Yep.
taking down
Oh,
something like
yeah,
a
yeah.
And people
stack
get
or whatever,
upset
and-
too. People get very
Yeah,
upset.
because it's they feel like they're insulted, like I've been tricked, etc. I've taken down some really amazing Willet with my stuff, Pappy 12, because Pappy 12, it's all about the name, right? And the other thing that I love about Pappy 12 is like Weller 12, Pappy 12.
Yeah.
It's the same fucking thing essentially.
Yep.
And so, this is funny. This is great too. So, my wife and I are at Montage in Laguna Beach. Try to sneak away for our anniversary as often as we can. And so we were just there, and sitting down, saying, "Hey, do you guys have a whiskey menu?" Yeah, they bring it to me. Sure. They had Weller 12 on there, and they had Pappy 12 on there.
Pappy was 3 times the price.
Keep
More.
going, buddy. Pappy. This is the Montage at a nice place. Pappy 12 for a 2-ounce pour at the Montage. Actually, I'm going to pull this up because I want to get the exact. It's that good. And I text my buddy Mike Sheets. I've been friends with since I was young. And he was like, he of course has everything. He has literally probably 30 years worth of whiskey. Okay, here we go. $400 for a 2-ounce pour.
That's not the most I've seen it for.
Weller 12, $95. It was more than 4x.
Wow.
It's more than 4x. I was like, I'll have the Weller 12, please.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
I've-
call it Pappy.
There was a place in Salt Lake I was at last year, and they had all the Pappy lineup, and it was $500 for a pour of Pappy 12. And like they just don't want, they just want it behind the bar so people come in to see it. That's all they
Yeah.
want. They don't care about selling it.
Well, and it's the business accounts too.
Yeah, that's true.
It's the business accounts. If you land a big deal and you work at a large investment company or corporation, and your client wants Pappy 12, you say, give this guy Pappy 12. You don't care how much it
Yeah.
costs because you just made millions of dollars
Yep.
on this transaction. You just did. And that's what it is. That's what Pappy has done. Shelf trophy, and for the businessmen that want to show off to their clients, etc. Right?
Yeah.
That's what it's done.
I overpaid for my first Pappy, and when I got it for retail, I was deeply disappointed in myself.
I think we just talked about this in the last episode
Yeah,
too.
Pappy 12 is still one of my favorites, and part of it goes probably to the first time I had it too, and just the experience that it was.
Yeah.
But I still, like every time I open that bottle, I can get that same smell.
Yeah.
Get that just floral aroma of it
Well-
just opens
Well,
up.
and that's
Here's-
literally what it is. It's bringing you back
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
yeah
That's
that first
I had
moment
it-
that you tried it and
Oh, yeah.
opened your eyes and
yeah.
Yeah.
We talk. I think we were recording when I was talking a little. Oh yeah, I was saying about Jen and her wine. Winning with a simple, blend. But that's why people are so obsessed with joining wine clubs, right? You go to Napa and you sit at this beautiful location, and you're at peace. And you're not thinking about work. You're not thinking about your stressful children. You're not thinking about whatever else you have going on. And you're just staring at the vineyards, and you're, sorry about the birds, by the way.
No,
They do
it's a
love
great
to-
addition.
Yeah, they're very opinionated on this subject, but you want to go back to that place, and it works for me,
Yeah.
right? And Pappy 12, I'm not saying Pappy 12 is
Right.
not good. It's
No.
very good.
Yeah.
It's very good. I just think that last line is more flavorful than Pappy 12, and I've had other people tell me the same thing. I would also say I prefer Pappy 12 to older.
I'm the
versions
same
of
way.
Pappy. Because, and you and I were talking about this at Gold Eagle, age statement. People just age statement whores. I mean, they exist. I like to traffic in 4 to 10, maybe 11-year-old whiskey because I have everything I need there to blend. Fruity floral notes of the younger stuff, char, dark fruits of the older stuff. I can make something great. there are some, 12, 15-year-old bottles that I'll drink and I'll say, whoa, that is char. That is just char. I can't even make out X, Y, and Z, and I'd really like to, etc. But people are saying, oh, this is older, so it's better. That is a bullshit thing that is created by marketers in the 1970s when a situation such as the one we are in now was occurring back then.
They had so much old whiskey they had to
Yeah.
part it.
Yep. All the distillers were like, this is shit. This is crap. This is not what I had in mind when I distilled this whiskey. We have to dump all of this. And they were pointing to, 10 years plus, right? And all the,
Which now would be blasphemous.
Oh, yeah. all the distillers are like, well, we want to exist in a year. And so if we were to do that, we'd be out of business. And the marketers, come in and say, no. Older is better. Older is better. Just like in the Scotch world, older is better. And here's the situation with Scotch, of course, as we know. It's aged in ex-bourbon barrels, right? And I know this because I'll sell my bourbon barrels now. My empty bourbon barrels, I will sell for $200 a barrel. They will come pick them up at my warehouse and pay me $200 for each barrel, ship them over to Scotland and Japan. And so, if you're dealing with a new charred oak barrel, it's going to put off a hell of a lot more char than a used charred oak barrel. And there's also much more temperate climate going on in Scotland, 55 degrees basically all year round. Whereas in Kentucky and Indiana, it's just hot and cold. And, so I always kind of crack up over that. And I like to mess with people in that regard too. I did at Gold Eagle event, I like to do this. I had, I can't remember which one I brought there. It was an eight-year-old barrel at, I can't remember. But I'll bring these barrels. Oh no, we were trying to guess the proof on
The
the
18
and a half year old.
Yeah.
Which is this one, right?
Yeah.
That we're trying this right
Yeah.
now.
Pouring right now.
Yeah, we were trying to guess the proof on the 18 and a half year old. I had anywhere from 90 proof up to 135 proof.
I think we even had lower. I think it was like 85
You're
up to like 135.
Yeah.
And I told you
That's awesome.
when you pour something blind for people and you ask them to guess the proof, they're assuming it's super high, even though it doesn't taste like it. But yeah, and I love your take on age statements, and I use it all the time with people, and use your
Gotta get the word
example.
out, my friend.
Yeah. And it's funny because every distillery, blender, anyone in the industry who's putting together whiskey behind the scenes says the same thing, is once you get to that 12, 13 year, anything older than that usually is not good and
Yeah.
not drinkable.
Yeah.
Just with American whiskey,
Yeah.
just kind of loses.
I think the oddball, because the more char, the more heavy oak.
Yeah, but you like Elijah Craig 18, which is basically half water.
Yeah.
You also like really shitty whiskey. No one else likes.
These are fighting words.
Oh, it's
I'm just
based
an
off
innocent
truth.
bystander. I'm on video. Just an innocent bystander.
But I like those, like, hard, like, tobacco and oak notes and the char. Like, that's one of the reasons why I like Jack, is because it's got that, like, char, flavor in there. Even the old number 7. And this 18 year is great.
Yeah, that's like it's like
Very
a fine cognac. It's
well
phenomenal.
balanced.
It is like a fine cognac. Like, it's very mellow but super flavorful, and the finish just lingers on and on and on.
It's just because I've had so many different whiskeys, or am I getting lemon peel on this?
There's
Like both on nose and palate.
It's surprisingly bright for being this old.
Yeah, I think bright is what I would use. Like, there's a lot of different things going on.
I get more of the fruit note out of it, which you normally associate with younger whiskeys.
Mm-hmm.
It's because you're still closer to the initial spirit. But
Yeah.
But I would say dark fruits on that.
Yeah, for sure. There's
Mhm.
like that.
I'm
Like
of course
stone
drinking
fruits and
the.
dried
I
fruits
think I'm
and-
drinking the Old Orleans.
Yeah, I'm getting more on the nose, a little bit
the
of
lemon peel.
lemon, citrus a little bit, but
Yeah.
then once you hits the palate, it's a little more dark fruits and berries.
It's a great pair with a cigar.
Mm-hmm.
I love to play the game where you can pretty much describe anything that you can taste in a whiskey.
Yeah.
Someone like, oh yeah, I get that too. Oh, I get that too. But it's a real thing. I mean, it's
Yeah.
a real thing.
I remember we have family in Watkins Glen, New York, on Seneca Lake. So there's a bunch of wineries up
That
there.
sounds fancy.
They're actually Watkins is famous for IndyCar races. They
So
used
the
to
road
race
course.
in the town through
Oh,
the
like
streets.
Chicago's doing now.
Yeah, it's a really cool place. It's a beautiful, idyllic, like the lake's in the middle of like a valley, and like everything's up on hills all
Sounds like
around.
Switzerland.
And stuff. Yeah, it's super nice. But there's wineries everywhere, so we went out, to visit family, like right when I
Take that.
was 21. So we went to, wine hopping. And, they're like going through the tasting notes and like sandalwood. My dad turns to me, he's like, "What the fuck is sandalwood?" I'm like, I don't know.
It's in every single candle now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So where does the name Beautiful and Damned come from? And I want to talk about that, and I want to talk about the label art too.
Yeah.
'Cause they're very beautiful bottles.
Yeah, let's do it.
A podcast about bourbon and the ones who drink it. This is Bourbon Matters.